Breaking news into HQ. The list expands for the Brooklyn Nets with players in the COVID list. This James Harden, he and Bruce Brown, the latest out because of they're both in COVID protocols. That brings the list of Brooklyn Net players out in COVID-19 protocols to 7. They have 9 players on the sideline. You see the bottom of that list with Joe Harris and Kyrie Irving. But Bruce Brown, James Harden are the latest 2 joining that front 5 headlined by LaMarcus Aldridge that are not available for their matchup against the Raptors on this night. One name that is available, Kevin Durant. He's coming off a 51-point game against the Pistons, and the Nets might need that amount against the Raptors because they have 8 players available, including those G League call-ups. Bill Reiter's all over the NBA, and he joins us now. Hey, Bill, the list just keeps growing for the Brooklyn Nets. We mentioned Kevin Durant, by the way, who's nursing an ankle injury as well. With regards to the NBA, the threshold seems to be if you have at least 8 available, then you can play a game. That is with those G League players. Should that list and that number perhaps be a longer number, a wider number for these teams?
Yeah, that's it, Jim, and you're right. The Chicago Bulls complained publicly and privately pretty aggressively when they got to this level, and the NBA did not suspend their games until they went below that number of 8 players. I can tell you this, people around the NBA who run these teams certainly think so. It is no secret that it's hard enough to win in the association these days. Folks will tell you the Eastern Conference, as difficult as it's been in many years, and with all respect to guys trying to grind their way from the G League to the association, it is not the same thing. And when you get to this place where the Nets are, you're just trying to field a team. The idea of actually keeping your head above water in these games, very unlikely.
Yeah, you and I were talking about this last week with regards to, usage, minutes played for a player like Kevin Durant. Again, just 8 players available for this team, and that includes the guys they're bringing up, again, from the G League. So with regards to Steve Nash's usage for him, do you play him more minutes, or do you just kind of let this game play out and try not to overdo it with Durant?
Jim, that is a great point, because the last thing that you want is for Kevin Durant to have to play 39 or 40 minutes or more night after night after night. I suppose it depends on the philosophy of the Nets. The reality is, despite all the injuries, despite whatever you want to describe it with Kyrie Irving, and now where we are with, 7 guys a part of this Brooklyn team that can't play, including James Harden because they're in health and safety protocols, for all the drama, the Nets have spent most of the year at or near the top of the Eastern Conference standings. So if they decide they want to ease up a little bit on Durant, you've got a little bit of room, you've got a little bit of maneuverability. Although I know the other side of this argument, just talking to some of the folks who want to take the Nets out in the postseason, is everybody's hoping they get that extra game, those actual contenders against Brooklyn if and when they face them in the postseason by having that better record.
Hey, Bill, bigger picture now. It's not just the Nets. There's a handful of teams now that have been impacted by COVID-19. You mentioned the Chicago Bulls. Should the league keep an eye on this with regards to what they do league-wide and maybe putting pause on some of these teams simultaneously?
Yeah, great question. I can tell you that they absolutely are, and there is some trepidation in the league office in New York City and around the NBA, around the country, and what comes next. I had the pleasure, Jim, you said it, of seeing you and some of the folks in Stanford last week. Spent a lot of my week bopping around New York City talking to various officials and scouts and people in and out of the NBA office. And I can tell you the headline, the main point of conversation is exactly what you described. Even before this hard news, obviously, the fear and the concern that this is going to be the new reality after the new year. We've got 20 teams that have been impacted so far this year, almost 50 players, 435 and counting number of days missed by various players, and the sense is absolutely that there are going to be multiple teams, multiple players, multiple names in the days, weeks, maybe months ahead who are going to miss time. I can just tell you this, the NBA really does not want to go backwards in terms of the calendar getting pushed back, what that does to players' health and safety, how it impacts the collective bargaining agreement, all those things. Come what may, the NBA is going to do everything it can, as best it can, to keep these games in this season on schedule, even if that means for teams like the Nets being bare bones in contests that really matter.
Yeah, and you make a good point. The fact of the matter is it's holiday season. Players are having get-togethers with their families, so the likelihood that those numbers are going to go up is there through the new year. You know, Tim Doyle, like the Raptors with regards to the line being 5, it's down to 4. Is this a good opportunity, if you will, if we're going to put something on the line here right before tip-off with regards to the Nets, a decimated roster, though still a 4-point favorite?
Yeah, I think I'm with Doyle. I'm usually with Doyle. He does pretty well. I mean, you're talking about a Nets team that is utterly and totally decimated, not just in terms of the guys on the floor, but in terms of the locker room, the Kyrie Irving drama. Now you have to worry, if you're Kevin Durant or anyone else, what your testing situation is going to be in the days ahead, whether or not you're going to have games going forward, if anybody else tests positive for COVID or just has to enter these health and safety protocols. Now, the Raptors have not exactly been world beaters this season, and Kevin Durant is whenever he's on the floor, but I certainly think there's some value there.
That's Bill Reiter, covers the NBA for CBS. Bill, we appreciate the insight. Again, this is what it looks like for the Brooklyn Nets, and you just heard Kevin Durant just a few days ago talking about the fact that the team needs to clean up at home, where their record is not as good as what they're done on the road, and now they've been hit with COVID protocols. Don't forget, KD was in COVID protocols twice a season ago. Following the Raptors game, they have the Sixers, the Magic, the Nuggets, Wizards, and Blazers. They're trying to get wins at home, but you have to wonder if that roster is going to be impacted with the numbers going up with players joining that COVID-19 list.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.